Chronic Hoosier joins us now. How are you, sir?
Glad to be back. Thanks for having me.
Love having you. How was your little five weekend?
Yeah, it's pretty subdued this year by Little Five standards, but that's what happens when you get stuck at home batching it with the kids while the missus is out of town on a girls trip. So it was a good time, but it was not your traditional Little Five by either my or most people's standards. It was yet again another wild Little Five. Unfortunately, seems like every year there's always some knuckleheads that really forget how to act when they come down here and make it a bad time for everybody. So fortunately, everybody survived this Little Five. It's just sad to see the incidents that kind of marred the weekend on Friday night.
Yeah, Chronic's talking about there was a shooting at a restaurant, I think. Which
Multiple shootings. There's one in the club at Kalau. There was one in the alley a couple blocks away,
I
and
did
then
not know that.
yeah, and they're not sure if those were related. And then there was a separate incident that was quasi related to the shootings where somebody over on campus had observed some individuals behaving strangely that thought they were involved in the downtown shootings that ended up being unrelated, but nonetheless resulted in a police chase that went from vehicle to foot and resulted in the recovery of a couple guns in possession of felons. So, or at least allegedly. So, yet again, it was just one of those things where it's sad to see it happen, but fortunate that everybody survived it okay.
Yeah, man. When I was in school, it was just fun. You didn't have to worry about that crap. But unfortunately, like you said, always knuckleheads. It doesn't matter whether it's the Derby. They have that issue. People coming in from out of town. When you have mass events, I mean, Little Five is not the Derby or the Indianapolis 500, but it doesn't matter. It's extremely popular, and Bloomington swells about three times its size during that weekend, or it did back when I was in school.
Yeah, it just about doubles, I believe, and it's a good time. It's great to see everybody out. It couldn't have been a better weekend from a weather standpoint. Unfortunately, it kind of overshadowed the race a little bit. First time since 2019, they were able to have fans in the stands and go out there and support the men's and the women's riders. And for all the notoriety of the weekend as a party time, it's really unbelievable if you've ever got to meet any riders or any of the teams and just all the sacrifices they make to get to the race, to qualify, to compete. Some of the best athletes on campus, quite frankly. I mean, these kids have incredible endurance and strength, and it's cool. You talk about amateur athletics. I mean, that's literally what we're doing talking about here. This is honestly the true definition of amateur collegiate athletics. Not obviously not an NCAA sanctioned sport, but people just going out there and doing it for the love of the sport and their teams and their fans and their families. So it was really cool knowing some families of some riders who were deprived of the opportunity to see their kids compete, their friends compete in the last year, and having it canceled the year prior to get out there and fully enjoy it. What is obviously one of the most sacred traditions in Indiana in the spring here. So glad that's back. Glad we're through it, and glad we're less than 2 weeks away from graduation and the official start of B-Town summer. So I'm in my groove.
2 weeks from graduation. That's crazy. That means it's finals time. Indiana landed Malik Raynaud recently, of course, from Montverde Academy, teammate of Jalen Hood-Schifino. But yet they are still recruiting. They brought in the kid that just committed, McNeil, committed to Ohio State immediately after visiting Indiana. But they also have Dexter Dennis that was in on a visit, but they're full right now. If Trayce Jackson Davis comes back, I think he comes back. Chronic. Let's say he does, and they add that player. What do you think happens? I've talked about my what I think that they can do, but they would have to do something.
Yeah, obviously they're if Trayce comes back and they do add one more transfer or just another commitment, no matter where it comes from, obviously they'd be one over the scholarship limit of 13. I It's tough to say. It's really tough to say, and this is one of the less savory parts of the game right now because somebody's probably through choice or other circumstances, in the event that happens, going to go find a new home next year. And from what we've seen, at least publicly, there doesn't appear a willing departure on the roster, but that's not to say there's not stuff happening behind the scenes where maybe that choice isn't already clear to those involved, more intimately with it. But but
Right.
it's going to be
Trayce
fascinating.
Jackson could have told the staff that, hey, I'm leaving regardless.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We just don't know that. I'll play this scenario out for you. This is my theory of what could happen. Anthony Leal relinquishing a scholarship for a year to be a walk-on, but given NIL money to cover that. His mother works at IU. He gets a tremendous break on tuition as it is, so he makes money already, and he's still there.
Yeah,
And
both his parents work at IU.
oh, and there you go. So, and he's going to play as much as he's going to play, so it wouldn't change his playing time, and he'd still be here. I don't know if he would accept that for a year, but that's just a scenario that I thought of trying to create a spot without somebody leaving.
And I'm not by any means going to pretend to be an expert in the area, but I think that may run afoul of scholarship rules. Perhaps, I don't know. But it's not an easy choice, and that's not to say that it's going to be a hard choice at the same time. Right now, you've got to keep in mind in the portal era, with NIL and everything else going on in the enticements and the inducements, you have to assume that everybody is contemplating their options at all times. Which honestly, it's hard to say you blame them, but also recognizing there's conversations happening behind the scenes, outside of the school, the program, other coaches, other programs, they're in touch with their AAU. It's such a network where communications happen, whether directly or indirectly, where guys are trying to figure out where the best spot's going to be, and if you're a guy that's sitting on the end of the bench down on the rotation, maybe you're looking for greener pastures, maybe something in your life, your personal life changed, again, not engaging in speculation here. But Tamar Bates just became a father. I have no idea where his child even resides. There's things going on though outside of Cook Hall that are very much impacting these decisions, and it would be probably pure speculation to say. I think one of the easiest things to do though, when you're trying to guess, look at the depth chart, look at the minutes these guys bowled, look at the depth ahead of them going into next season's roster. Usually, it's clearer than what it would appear, as you're sitting there trying to figure out who's going to be the next guy out.
Yeah, and that's why I suggested Anthony, thinking, he's the hometown kid. He would rather stay here, regardless. I don't know, but that's just a scenario. Or Logan Duncombe, if he does not show improvement, there's just there's just very little wiggle room. But obviously, there has to be some, or they wouldn't be making these contacts, Kevin. They're still out talking to these guys and bringing them in on visits. Obviously, Dexter Dennis just finished his visit up, and they're waiting a decision from him.
Yeah, and I do think that we're near the end of the semester, right? It's probably going to be at the end of this week, so there'll be some conversations with regards to that. May 1st is the transfer portal deadline. So if something develops with anyone remaining on the roster, I would think that it would happen probably by the end of this week. So it could happen. It could happen fairly soon. But these things, like Craddock said, I think they tend to work themselves out. And if Indiana is in a position to add, they're probably going to have to subtract, given the numbers. If you want to have the latitude to bring Trayce back, which appears to be. And if you take a look at how deep the front court is with Jordan Geronimo coming back, and if Trayce does come back, that would lead you to believe that somebody in the front court could look at those numbers and say, hey, look, it's going to be really hard for me to play again here, and maybe look elsewhere.